want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. Hello, everybody. Another edition of the Free Like Me podcast. I'm your host, Clark Fredericks. I would ask of you to subscribe to YouTube or Spotify or iTunes. And if you find any of these podcasts interesting and useful, please share them. I want to start this episode off by dedicating this episode to my buddy Mike Failace of the Suffering Podcast. The studio that the Suffering Podcast uses is this one I am in. When I wanted to start my podcast, I reached out to Kevin and Mike. I had been on their podcast twice as a guest. And I said, hey, I want to start a podcast. Would you guys mind if I use the studio you use? Or would you feel like I'm intruding on you? And they were like, are you kidding? By all means, reach out to Andy, the producer, and go ahead and set it up. And I was like, you're 100% sure? They're like, come on, bro, you're a brother of ours. And so that's where I'm at. I'm at the Suffering Podcast Studios that they use. And Kevin and Mike became like brothers to me. We hit it off. We all had trauma, and we all bonded over our trauma. And this past week, Mike got sucked into the funnel of darkness that can happen to us. And before he reached out to Kevin, his partner, myself, many of his friends, Andy, the producer, he took his own life. And it's heartbreaking. This is being filmed on a Monday, and I found out about his death on Thursday, so it's just a few days afterwards. And I didn't know what else to do. I wanted to make mention of it, so I just dedicate this episode to Mike. And if any of you are hurting, man, don't suffer alone. Please reach out. Please share your pain with others, and don't go down that same path. Life is precious, people. So with that being said, my second guest that I ever interviewed here was a jail guard from where I was locked up. And he shared his perspective on the male side of the corrections facility. And I had a female reach out to me after that episode who also had worked in a corrections facility. And she wanted to share the female perspective. So this week's guest is Anna, and we're going to hear what it was like to be a female in a jail. Stay tuned. Anna.
Hi.
Hello, my dear.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. Sorry about the somber intro, but Mike was very special to me, and Kevin was very special, and I just wanted to make mention of his passing. So, you reached out. My guest Derek had mentioned that he thought of harming himself when he was a corrections officer, and you sent me a private message saying I thought the same exact thing, and I was like, wow, we're on to something here. So I reached back out to you and said, would you like to share the female perspective? And you're like, absolutely. To get into why you might have become a corrections officer later in life, let's go back early on to your childhood, because I think, our adult decisions we make are based on our childhood experiences.
I agree.
So just where did you grow up, and what was your family dynamic like?
I grew up in New York City, East Village. Child of two lawyers, great people, intelligent, but highly functioning alcoholics.
Both of them.
Both of them. So, my parents got divorced when I was 4, and it was back when people really didn't have divorced parents.
Right.
not as prevalent as it is today.
Right.
My
mom,
mom.
we're people don't know your age or
Right.
So what year or decades are we talking? Is this early 70s?
This is late 60s, early 70s.
When they got divorced.
Well, they got divorced 72.
Okay.
I mean, really unheard of at the time. My mom was not a stay-at-home mom. My mom worked, so we were just like this bizarre little family.
And both are lawyers and both are heavy drinkers.
Yeah.
And obviously that probably contributed to the divorce.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And who did you live with when they got divorced?
My mom had me till I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And then my father actually won custody of me when I was 10.
Obviously, things with your mother weren't going so
Right.
well.
Right.
Can you talk about like what life was like as you got older and you memories you can recall, and what life was? It just complete
Absolutely.
unstable?
It's a shame. You know, my mom was this brilliant woman and she was English. So she had the beautiful accent. She was beautiful and young and bright. And she was very strict, very English strict. Children should be seen and not heard. And she whacked me, hit me, threw me downstairs. I mean, it was really bad for a professional person. You know, people were shocked.
What would cause the beatings? Just
Oh,
her
absolutely.
drunken behavior, or would the slightest infraction cause it?
No, it always occurred when she had had too many. But again, my mother had a very high tolerance. Like, you know, I would count 6, 7 drinks after work and she'd still be pretty good. I mean, not necessarily crocked, you know. But that it was always a result of having too much to drink, or, you know, I would do something wrong, or not even wrong necessarily, just be a kid.
Right.
You know, put my elbows on the table, do what kids do, not finish my dinner, that kind of thing. So she was really, really strict and really, really horrible.
So 6, 7 drinks, would that just be the beginning?
Yes.
And then it would continue until we pass
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I often put her to bed. It was yuck.
Vomiting?
Yeah, yeah. That was more prevalent later. You know, when I lived with her, actually, the vomiting wasn't too bad. Her drinking really took off when she lost custody of me, which is unbelievable to me because it was pretty bad when I was there.
Would you ever see her drinking like early in the morning before work?
No.
Never
no,
saw that?
No.
And you don't know if at lunch she was having a liquid lunch or
Right. I
anything?
presume she was. They were. It was like Mad Men a little. You know, they
Right.
were drinking on and off during the day, you know.
And the culture at the time, 70s, was pretty
Absolutely.
loose and
Especially
wild.
in New York City.
Right.
And they were making money and they were sharp and they were productive and stars in their field and they were allowed to do whatever.
What type of law did she practice?
She
You
did
know?
civil, and my
She did
father
civil.
originally did criminal and then moved on to civil. My dad had his own practice.
Okay.
My mom actually stopped doing it and just, you know, called herself a recovered lawyer, but that was later on.
So, what made your father go get custody at 10? Was he seeing bruises on
Yes,
you?
the school was involved. This was before DIFUS, which is
Right.
the thing in New Jersey for children to protect children.
People asked me about my abuse early on,
Right.
and there was no organizations back then. There's no
Mhm.
organizations for a child with a bruise, no
Mhm.
organizations for a child who's been raped.
Right.
The police. The
Right,
police and
right,
only the police.
right.
Right.
No caseworkers, no, guidance counselors, no one to go to in the schools.
And because you got 2 professional parents,
Exactly.
that probably, caused people at school to
Exactly.
look over it, right?
They were
It
like,
did?
what? This little white kid has a hand across her face?
You
They
could
were
see
in
the
shock.
palm print?
Yes.
And would they ask you what happened?
Well, I mean, I was removed from class immediately. Yeah, it was just like, what happened? And again, you know, unlike a lot of children who don't say anything, I spoke up. I was like, this is wrong. I told anyone who listened to me. I was not, I wanted out. I just was like, somebody take me away from this.
And what would your teachers say to you? Can you recall a teacher that was loving, or
Yeah,
they were just like,
one teacher was amazing. My 5th grade teacher, Ms. Williams, and she was so loving and caring. She would, you know, walk me to the bus from school, or, you know, she would get me milkshakes sometimes during lunch. Very kind. And my mother actually drew her into the custody battle and claimed that she was interested in me romantically and just made this whole story. But this woman actually was a saint. I know the other people cared, but again, the rest of the staff were kind of in denial and like, oh, snap, this isn't my problem. Look the other way, which it was what you did back then, really.
And then, so you have a teacher that's trying to protect you and help you,
Help me.
and then your mother drags her into the court proceedings that she's a pedophile.
Disgusting. Yes.
And then that makes every other teacher
Right.
not want to get involved, to have that.
Right. And this poor woman went from wanting to help my father to having to be subpoenaed because she was mortified at what my mother was accusing her of.
And back then, like for a father to get custody was almost unheard of.
Miraculous, yes.
So can you recall did you have to testify in court, like
Yes.
to what was going on?
It went on from when I was 8 years old to 10. And my father originally started representing himself because it was so expensive. But like Benjamin Franklin says, if you want to lose your case, represent yourself. So then he had to hire somebody, and they were trying to keep me out of it all. And then at the end, I did testify. I think like the last court session before the actual ending court session. And my father didn't actually win. My mother ended up hitting me, and I ended up hitting my mother back before the last court date. And that's when my mother raised her hand and said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Either I'm going to kill her or she's going to kill me. We got to come up with some sort of agreement." And that was when the judge was like, "Okay, overtime for everyone. Let's hammer out."
She said that in court?
Yeah.
I'm going to kill her or she's going to kill me.
Yeah. She wasn't arrested, though. Today she might have been, in trouble for that. But
Right.
They just drew up something real quick, and I was whisked away with my father.
And before this all started, did he have like weekend custody?
Yes, he
That's
came
how it was?
every other weekend, Wednesday nights. I was living in Princeton with her, so he would come from New York City and take me out to dinner Wednesday nights, and then every other weekend I'd take the bus to Port Authority to New York.
And then he would see, like stuff.
Oh, yeah,
on
he
your
would see my
bruises.
marks. I would be physically ill on Sundays. At one point, I lived in Boston with my mother, and I would tear up the plane tickets before we would go. And this was back in the day when it was a hard copy ticket,
Yeah.
and you didn't get a refund. There was no, customer service. My poor father had to buy another ticket. It was crazy. I was acting out all over the place.
And, did it affect your grades at school?
Absolutely. I was tanking. I was failing. I was becoming promiscuous in 6th grade. He actually took me out of 6th grade in December, and that's when, I won, or he won, and we went to New York, and I started school in the middle of 6th grade. But I was getting, hanging out with the wrong kids, starting to act out really badly.
Any self-harm?
No.
No, but just starting to be promiscuous at a young age.
Interested, thinking about things I never thought about before.
Yeah, I mean, trauma does that to us.
Deep, dark,
Yeah.
crazy thinking about hurting my mother, thinking about killing my mother. I often think if the internet had been around then, I don't know where I'd be. That kind of thing.
And once your father got custody, then did the custody for her reverse like your dad did, like weekends and a Wednesday?
It did, but I didn't see her. She was hospitalized for months. She had a breakdown, and then
After you got taken away, she had a breakdown.
And then I didn't want to see her for a while, and then I just would see her for 2 weeks in the summer for the first few years because I never wanted to see her again.
And then for those 2 weeks, what was the drinking like during those 2 weeks?
That's when I learned about the passing out, and that's when I had to pull her, off the floor and put her into the bed. And, I didn't even know why. I mean, I knew why, but it was like, what is this? Are you kidding me? I wanted to leave her on the floor, but, the good kid in me was like, put her into bed.
Passed out with a puddle of vomit around her?
No, the vomit was usually at night. In the morning, there'd be vomit around her, and I'd be like, oh, wow.
And is she still working at this point?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. No.
So after she lost custody, things spiraled for her, and then
Yes.
she couldn't even work anymore because of her drinking
she
and mental
couldn't work,
state?
didn't want to work. I don't really know what the problem was. We didn't talk a lot. I mean, I showed up there because I was ordered to, but it wasn't really, I wanted to give my dad a break. There was other things involved.
As we go into your teen years, your high school years, what is little Anna like going into those years?
Well,
do you start drinking or using drugs or anything and following the same behavior?
Yeah, little Annie was walking around New York high and drunk at 15. I was tall, I was developed, so I didn't get carded. And this was before the whole Bobby Chambers thing in Manhattan, so it was really loose, the bars.
Chambers things, you talking on
he strangled
his girlfriend in Central Park or
Yeah,
something?
and that's when they got really strict with the IDs. I also had a fake ID, which we all did.
And then your father even take you to Studio 54 when you were a teen?
Yes, my father thought if he took me, I would be safe from men, older men. But, I thought there was something so bizarre about sitting at a bar with your father and I'm having a Jack and Coke and he's having, his vodka straight
All
up.
right.
It was weird. But again, I want to stress that in the private school group that I was hanging out with in New York City, a lot of kids were going to rehab with their fathers for Coke. Their mothers were on Demerol. A lot of the kids were doing stuff with their parents, which today sounds so dysfunctional. And it is dysfunctional.
Right.
But at the time, it was sort of this segment in New York in the 80s where just everyone was doing it. And if you had any money, you were doing Coke or you were doing, whatever you had access to. And your kids were doing it as well.
Did you experiment with drugs in your teen years?
I did not, I was afraid of cocaine and I knew I couldn't really afford it. So I stayed off, I didn't do that. But I was good with the weed and, basically vodka was my master. I was very, very happy with alcohol. And as the child of a successful lawyer, my father was basically like, look, I can get you out of anything alcohol related. But if it's drug related, we're effed. Like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to help you. So just stay with the alcohol, okay, kiddo? I was like, okay.
He's giving you permission to just become a drunk in your teen years.
Yeah, pretty much. What I didn't want to do, I did. Both of them, I was like, I'll never drink. Look at this stuff. It makes them nuts. But my dad was a happy, nice drunk. So I guess progressively, I sort of forgot about the wicked drunk that my mother was.
Right. I hear that over and over and over. The podcast that is airing right now, Tommy D, he idolized his uncle, and his uncle died of a heroin overdose. And 3 days later, Tom uses heroin for the first time. And he was destroyed over his uncle's death, idolized his uncle. Uncle dies of an overdose, and yet dives right in. Airing tomorrow is Brad, who became a horrific alcoholic, and his father was an alcoholic who beat him.
Right.
And the father would stock for him and his brother in high school. Starting in 8th grade, he'd have a refrigerator downstairs stocked with beer for them.
Yep.
And, Brad's like, I didn't ever want to become like my father. And yet, I become just like my father,
Absolutely.
And then you're seeing the same thing. Even though we're horrified and disgusted by behavior, it's what we know.
It is what we know. It is what feels comfortable.
Almost normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Like dysfunction and alcoholism, that's what I grew up with, and that's what I know.
And how can I ruin my life? Subconsciously.
Yeah.
How can I ruin my life? Yeah.
And did alcohol ruin your life?
Yeah, for a while.
Took control of it?
Yeah, I mean, my father passed when I was 19. And
what happened there?
1985, and 1985 was my lost year. He died of cancer, but it was exacerbated by the alcoholism.
So he got custody of you, and then his alcoholism took off?
Also 2 packs of Lucky Strike a day. I mean, basically, I ended up going to Alateen in my later years in high school because of his drinking. But again, he wanted me to go away to college. He wanted me to go away because he couldn't go away, so I went away. And that's when his drinking really took off. That's when, my neighbors would, write me letters. Your father's leaving keys in the door. Your father's not okay. You need to come home and go to school at home. And I was like, he wanted me to go away. But then by the end of my freshman year, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So
freshman year of high school? College.
So then all bets were off. It was kind of like he was dead by the end of August.
Wow.
Yeah. So Sloan Kettering, that whole thing, and that's when my drinking just took off.
So you numb yourself.
Absolutely.
Do we know anything about either your father's childhood or your mother's childhood? Everybody, especially with pedophiles, everybody's like, oh, well, that pedophile must have been abused. Right. And, I have a therapist that I went to, and she's like, Clark, that's a myth. She's like, they use that as a crutch for their behavior. She worked in an institute, and all pedophiles said, I was abused as a child. And they're trying to justify their behavior. And then they would put them lie detector tests, and they would all fail the lie detector test. Not all. She said 75% failed the lie detector test at were you abused as a child. So it's not necessarily true. But, addiction, it's over 90% that there was childhood trauma. Do you know anything about your parents' childhoods?
My dad had a pretty good childhood as far as I know. I mean, my grandparents were fantastic, and this, I don't know about the great-grandparents and all that jazz, but I do know with my mother, I believe, my great-grandmother was raised in British-occupied India, so they were British. My great-grandfather was some muckety-muck in the British Army, and they lived in India. Like, my grandmother had servants, the whole nine. But I think what happened was my mom obviously was born in England. They were back in England, and my great-grandmother raised the girls. And so I know she was really hard on them, and what would be considered corporal punishment today. Smacking them and twisting their arm and pinching them, just like weird stuff that my aunt has mentioned. But also I want to stress that my mom was mentally ill. I mean, my mom, now they call it bipolar, I suppose, but, she was manic depressive. And unfortunately for my mother, medicine never worked for my mother. She never got the therapy, the doctor, psychiatric help she needed. She didn't get all that. And apparently alcohol was the only thing that really helped her. And as a child, I was angry to hear that. But I guess, in my older age now, I'm like, wow, I get it now. Because I have enough friends who are bipolar, and I've seen enough people successfully medicated and living their lives successfully without their mood swings, right? Because they're responding to the medicine and the therapy that they have. Even if they can't afford it, there's therapy available. We've come so far with the therapy. But my mom just didn't have access to that. So they would just throw her in the hospital, and I guess regulate her, and then she'd go for the alcohol because that's the only time she felt okay.
Right.
And so, when I forgave her in my head, because she never asked for forgiveness, I sort of put the curtains of that over it. Like, she did the best she could, really. But I do.
So for your own sanity, to try to justify, you accepted the mental health part of it.
But my grandmother was also an active drunk and died of the disease. I mean, it did run in
her mother.
Yes.
Right.
It ran throughout generations in my family of the.
So you got the grandmother who's alcoholic, and you got the great grandmother who's violent.
Right.
And then your mother takes both of those traits.
Sure.
and
makes her little mess.
Right. So your father dies when you're a freshman in college.
Yes.
And what about your mother? Where's she at now in this picture?
She's living in Virginia, doing all these alcoholic studies. And she actually had like a year sobriety. She was working with the National Health Institute in D.C. They were researching her. She went to AA, but she went to an atheistic version of AA. She did a few things. I didn't even know they had one of those. Yeah, well, you can pretty much find any 12-step program, but she went to these programs.
She was an atheist?
Yeah, diehard, still is to this day.
And how about your father?
No. Roman Catholic, believed
He's
strong.
Roman Catholic. And when he married her, she was an atheist?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Opposites attract.
Absolutely. My parents did love each other, and there was a lot of electricity between them. But, I didn't see it after I was 4 or, whatever, whenever they got divorced, which I think was 4. But,
so she's in Virginia.
She's in Virginia.
Doing a study. She's sober for a year. Did you see her during that year?
Negative. I hadn't dealt with her at all because I was just like,
Had enough.
Yeah, I had enough. I was done with her. My father was paying for college. I didn't need her.
Right.
She did come to his wake, which I thought was pretty okay, classy in a way. She stayed for 5 minutes, paid her respects and left, which was cool. And she gave me all these books on Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, when people die and steps of grieving. She tried to help. And then she offered to pay for me to go to UVA, University of Virginia. And I was like, thanks anyway. No thanks. Right. But she sort of had her stuff together. But again, she was working at Borders, a bookstore. She was just kind of doing her thing and trying to stay sober and not really having a lot of success with it. At the same time, I was getting calls from people that she was renting rooms with because she was destroying the floors and the beds with the vomitus, if you will. She was getting so ill from drinking, even though she had bouts of sobriety. This is after that
year,
yeah, it was just, I don't know what was real and what wasn't, so I just stayed away.
What to believe from her?
Yeah,
Are you really sober?
I
Right.
just was like, okay, I'm happy for you. I was not sober at the time, so I was like, rock on. Good for you. Not there. I'm good. I'm drinking away.
And are you looking at her or hearing and saying, "Man, is this where I'm headed?" Or you don't even want to
No, I
do that
still,
self-analysis.
no.
Addiction,
Yeah.
those in active addiction hate self-analysis. All of us.
Absolutely. I thought I was still better than her.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to admit that. I was an only child. I was happening. I had a little money. I mean, my dad had paid for school. I was rocking. I mean, with the exception of my broken heart over my father's death, I was pretty good. And then that was the year where I really thought about suicide. And I just was like, I can't live without my father. I took a year off. I was devastated.
That after the freshman year you took off?
Yes. And I kept drinking. And then I kept waking up because I was drinking to die overnight. And then one day I realized I'm too young. I'm not going to die. I'm just going to keep waking up with these wicked hangovers. I got to get my stuff together. Like, I'm a mess.
When you took off from college, what are you living on? Did he have any money he left you?
Yeah. I was living on that. I also had a job. Oh, I worked at Benetton, the store with the sweaters, like in the 80s. Yeah, I worked there. I did some retail stuff and was like, holy smoke, I got to get back to college. This is not really for me. I was assistant manager, but
so take us into a day in the life when you're drinking heavily. So you wake up.
A day in the life, right?
Wake
okay.
up when you start drinking. When you go throughout the day.
I was
doing
never,
what?
I was never a day drinker. I mean, maybe 3, 4, but not in the daytime. I would wake up, I'd have breakfast, I'd go to work, and then I'd slip, a vodka, and then,
At work.
Yeah, because
At
I was
lunch
the boss, or at lunch, or like usually in the afternoon, and then I'd get off at like 5, 6, 7. It depended what time I was working till, because it was retail, or I'd close the store, and then I'd go out clubbing, and so that would be, we're clubbing, we're crocked, we're drunk, we're so drunk we don't even know. I had an instance where from the Limelight, this guy picked me up, this poor cab driver, he picked me up 3 times in a row. But I didn't know. So 3 nights in a row, he drove me home and I didn't know. So the 3rd night he goes, hey, doll, do you know me? Do you recognize me? I was so drunk and blacked out that I didn't know him. And I'm like, no. He's like, I've driven you home the last 3 nights. And I was like, what? So, I mean, I was really not doing well. The miracle is that I never got raped, attacked, or, I mean, I really think angels were watching over me, because I would walk home often and, I'd see a gang of people. It was 2 a.m. I'd see a gang of kids and I'd walk to the other block and they'd shout at me and then they'd walk by. And then I'd walk back to the other block, across the street that they were on. I would walk home in the middle of the street because I'd rather be hit by a car than attacked, because my mini skirts were up to my butt cheeks. I mean, we weren't really, dressed, appropriately.
Well,
So,
for the Limelight you were.
Well, I was right. I was
or
young.
for Studio
I was,
54.
Yeah, I was, studio was closed by then. But I mean, it was, I was wearing scary outfits. So, and then that's fine. I was young. I loved it. But
So we're not talking just a weekend warrior. This is during the week too, right?
This
so
is
it's
all the time.
3, 4 in the morning every night, blacked out, drunk.
Blacked out, passing out, don't remember. The miracle was I got to work on time. But again, I was like my father. The alarm would go off. I'd wake up and I would go to work, because I was always a workaholic or a worker bee, or, even though I had money, I wanted more. Hey, I need more money. Got to earn that money. Got to earn that money.
And just you made a mention of something, and I just glanced over it. Back in high school, you decided to go to teen Al-Anon?
Alateen.
Alateen,
Yeah,
it's called.
Alateen, which is it's for teenagers or kids. I think it's 12 and up, 12
With an
to
alcoholic
18.
parent?
Right. A lot of the parents there were like, a lot of the kids had drug addicted parents, like, heroin smack using parents.
Right.
But I was truly like, yeah, my dad's drinking too much. Like, my dad would give me money to go skiing, like $300. And then the next morning I'd be like, hey, Dad, I need $300 to go skiing. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, baby. Yeah, okay. Like, God forgive me. It was horrible. My dad was great, man. But I was your typical teenager. I took full advantage of the situation. And I was like, wow.
Right.
But I mean, to mess with his money. And then he'd be like, oh, I'm missing money. And I'd be like, oh, well, gotta go. But again, he had to go to work. He had to be in court. So he didn't really, he'd go on with his life. It was kind of like, all right, I guess I'm not missing money. Whatever.
Right.
Because he's fighting his own addiction, right? And trying to hold on to this, this little cutie lawyer company, and is trying to keep his business partner happy. And it was a
And
disaster.
what happened after his death with the business?
Well, my godfather, who was his business partner, kept the business. And I don't want to say we were all relieved, but my father was on such a scary path the last year before he died that a lot of us were like, oh, okay. Okay, like it's going to be okay.
What was the scary path?
It was like The Verdict, like the movie The Verdict with Paul Newman. I'm aging myself now. But, he just every day, it was a sad, sad alcoholic scene, and he loved me and I was his world, but it was all about how much I can drink and get away with, and how much do I need to feel right to go to court today to save this person from going to jail. I mean, he really, it was
sad.
Yeah, it was he was a great guy, and he was really ethical, and each year he just got more disillusioned and became so bitter towards the love of his life, which was law, the law. So,
I think people, when they think of addiction, they think of the harder drugs as like the
Yes.
really, really bad addiction.
Absolutely.
But alcohol is just horrendous. Like, I got out of prison and I was living with my mother when I got out of prison, and my brother, my older brother. And my older brother was spiraling with alcohol. And I had never seen something so destructive in all my life. Before I got arrested, I'm doing a balancing act with cocaine around the clock and Xanax, to bring me down from the coke high. I'm throwing in pain pills and heroin, bottles of vodka, and like I'm like a mad chemist, like balancing all these substances. I thought I was pulling it off pretty good. I guess considering all of that, I was. But everybody around me is like, "Wow, Clark's going really hard here." But what I saw with my brother with his drinking was just something unfathomable, and it's horrific. And so like I don't need to go into every detail, but it was just complete insanity. And so I know where you're coming from. It's complete insanity, and because I think maybe because alcohol's legal, like
Absolutely.
it doesn't
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
stigma that heroin
Yes.
or cocaine
Yes.
addiction does.
I mean,
Well,
half the nation is addicted to it, and it's
Right.
all okay because it's legal.
right.
And in New York City, you don't have a car, or you don't really drive a lot, so you're like, it's a free for all.
Right.
There's no ramifications. It's just like, woohoo, get on the subway, like you're all right, or walk home, or take, a cab, whatever.
And that's how it was with prescription drugs for a long time. All the mothers at home
Right, all
had
those
their
50s
Xanaxes.
housewives,
For a
absolutely.
while, everybody was on Xanax.
Mother's Little Helper, yep.
And then like the opioid problem, like
Yeah.
for a long time,
Yep. Oh yeah,
handing those out like candy.
yeah.
Well, they're it's from a prescription, and
from a
alcohol's
doctor.
legal, so
It's
those
okay.
aren't right. But
Even my friends today are like, just take a Xanax, or I have a Xanax from the doctor. And I'm like, I can't take a Xanax. It's not alcohol, but it's just like alcohol. Like, I know that I will not do all right with a Xanax.
Right.
Like I can't do that.
right. And and I have a guest coming on soon, next couple of weeks, who facilitates microdosing, for people with trauma. And my thought is that it's all well and good if you don't have prior addiction issues. If you have prior addiction issues and you're going to microdose, and even though you're microdosing, you're going to get some sort of feeling, and there's that monster inside of you that's like, whoa, this feels pretty good. Why should we microdose? let's just do full bore.
Right,
We'll
right,
feel
right.
even
Right,
better.
right.
So I'm going to hear from her how she has a very strict vetting policy. Yeah, I guess you have to. And she
Sure,
agrees
yeah.
with that. Like, if you've got prior addictions, you can't
Sure,
do this.
sure.
So back to you. So you took the next year off of college.
Yes.
And then then where do we go with our life?
You know, I had to.
You're drinking heavily every day.
Yeah, I'm drinking heavily. I'm seeing a psychiatrist like twice a week because everybody's afraid I'm going to kill myself. I mean, my dad and I were pretty codependent. We had, this relationship. So I was devastated, lost, a mess. And I wanted to die. So I was suicidal, and I was depressed and sad and doing nothing well except going to work, I suppose. So I had to account every other weekend with my uncle who lived in Queens, and it was my dad's brother. So he was like, look, I promised my dying brother that you would go to college. You got to finish college. I don't care if you major in basket weaving at some hippie school in Vermont. You got to go. So I was like, okay. I mean, and thank God for him because I would not have my education. So I got into NYU and went, okay. And at NYU, I could still sort of drink and
hit all the clubs.
And I could still perform. Like, I would sing at background sing at CBGB's at night, drink, pass out. But I'd be in dance class at 8 a.m. It was crazy. I also used, this is funny, but sugar was really my first addiction as a child. But I'm not talking sugar. Like, I would walk around with the whole Pillsbury dough circular thing from cookie dough.
Right.
I would eat 10 Reese's peanut butter cup wrap things. I wouldn't eat one. So, I was an addict from the very beginning. One of anything didn't do it for me. So I was eating horribly. I was drinking horribly. And still I'm doing classes for dance. And then I have modern dance in the afternoon. I mean, I was very physically fit in this training program at NYU, Tisch School of the Arts. And I was doing well.
And what was your drink of choice?
Oh, I got to be honest, vodka.
Vodka was it?
Originally, we all start with Jack and Coke, 7 and 7, whiskey sour, the sweet stuff. But then eventually I just needed to get hammered quicker.
And are we straight vodka?
Straight up, baby. We started the tonic water, or you know what I mean, or gin and tonic, but straight up vodka. I had no time for, I didn't have time. I was really busy. I was hustling, doing things, having fun. I had, my boyfriend. I was doing stuff, living life.
It was need
crazy.
That buzz as quick as possible.
Crazy. Yeah.
The guest coming on tomorrow, Brad, I'm like, what were you drinking? Are you a wine drinker? Are you beer, shots? He's like, beer, wine? He goes, that takes way too long. I'm just chugging vodka, man. Just
some of my friends, they ruin their lives on packs of beer or, the 36 pack. I'm like, what? To me, it was like water. I just had no time for that.
Right. Let's just get right to it.
Get there. Yeah.
So you got your degree?
I did. Yeah.
And what was your degree in?
A Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Fine Arts?
Theater.
All right. And we're still drinking. We graduate.
Right.
Now what happens?
Oh, and then, we try to get a real people job, corporate America. I want to marry my boyfriend, right? I just want the picket fence. I want to move to New Jersey. I just want to be a suburban mom. I'm still just brokenhearted from my father's death. I went through life. So then, I don't want to say I took a hostage, but my boyfriend and I had been together for a while, and he asked me to marry him, and I was like, yay, yes.
And we're how old?
I was 22.
22 when you got married?
Yeah. No, I was 24 when we got married. I got engaged at 22. But we actually moved to Texas, Dallas, Texas, because he was a computer guy and doing very well. So I followed him. We lived there. And again, we're drinking socially. We're keeping up with all the Yankees, in our corporation. We're just living the life. I mean, again, I want to say I was sort of tame. I was tame. I calmed down. I quieted down. He never told me to calm down, but we were drinking buddies as well. So, but I did definitely tame it because I was no longer like this crazy New Yorker.
And when did alcohol become too much for you?
I was 30. Fast track to, we have the house in suburbia with the cutie white picket fence, and I have 2 children. And I've been married 7 years. Yeah, 6 years. And I was 30. And that's when the alcohol started. I started drinking every weekend. We would drink heavily. And one night, my eldest woke up, and I went to see her. And she was 2, and I went to see her. And she's like, ew, mommy, your breath reeks. And that's when I had this flashback from my childhood. And I freaked. I was like, oh. And then I basically silently, because I was the obedient, good housewife, right? Silently, I kind of had a freak out. And I basically ended up journaling and writing how miserable I was. And My husband and I were fighting a lot. We were always fighting, and we were fighting a lot, and then it got physical. And it was around the same time as OJ and everything, and so I was just like, you know what? I'm out. I'm out. So I bolted with my girls.
Right.
And then, we sold the house. We did everything. We inevitably got divorced. We got a divorce much quicker because, he had broke the restraining order, so he was in trouble. But I did it as civilly as I could, not as ugly as my parents did it.
Right.
I've made amends to him since, but, I'm not sure I could ever really correct what that would happen there. But basically, that's when I was drinking a lot, especially just on the weekends. But again, every time I drank, I was drunk. I couldn't just have a glass of wine with my friends. I couldn't just go out for a drink with you. I would get crocked. I drank to forget, to become numb.
Right.
And I'm 30, and I've got these two little cuties who are like, 2 and 4. Okay. So then I win the divorce case, or, I get this great settlement. I buy a condo in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and I'm seeing a therapist, and she's like, listen, I can't help you anymore. You need a 12-step program. You need to go to ACOA or like adult children. You need to do something and work on this stuff that you haven't figured out or corrected from your childhood. And I was like, all right, it's free. I'll go. So I ended up going to Al-Anon because, this guy I was dating at the time, right after my divorce, was passing out on my couch. And I was like, oh, he's the problem, not me. He is the problem. So then, I go to Al-Anon a few days and I'm like, oh, I'm your father, I'm your brother, I'm your son. I'm going across the hallway. That's when I realized, when I was looking in the mirror, that I might be the problem. Because after getting all this, the custody of my beautiful girls, the money, the settlement, the place, I was still miserable. I still hated myself. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, Clark.
Right.
I was like, I could not look at my eyeballs in the mirror. I had all this shame. It was weird. And I was like, holy smoke, I think I'm the problem. Oh, no, I can't be the problem. Oh, maybe. I just had like a humble moment where I might be the problem. Because I was an egotistical maniac, pretty New Jersey housewife. I had the life of Riley, really.
I listened to a podcast, and they had a therapist on the podcast, and the therapist said, do you know that 50% of the people in the morning cannot look at themselves in the mirror? And she said, and of those 50% that do look at themselves in the mirror, 75% hate what they see. So that leaves 25% of 50 that like themselves.
Very sad, very sad. I had what I thought was the perfect life. And of course, my children were my life. And every time I looked at, they were so gorgeous and innocent and lovely, and look at me, I can't look at myself. Right. Wow.
So you have this sort of come to Jesus moment where I might be the issue,
the problem.
And then what do we do from there to solve that?
That's when I go and interview AA for like 3 months. And I'm like, oh, just checking it out. Just check. No, I'm Anna. Hi. Just checking it out. And then 3 months later, I surrendered and said, all right, I have a problem.
Surrendered.
Yeah, I don't ever want to drink again. I had been dating a guy before from Al-Anon who gave me a big book and said, at the risk of us not dating ever again, I need you to read this. And I was like, all right, well, if it's well written, I'll read it. How arrogant am I, right?
Right.
So how many crappy novels did I read? But only if this is well written. Well, of course.
That's most of us, we're like, to think that we're the one with the problem.
It's too hard. It's too scary. So I read it, and I didn't stop reading it. I took the day off from work Monday. I read the whole thing in 3 days, and I was like, holy cow. Like, oh my, I belong here. Shit. Right. Now what do I do? Right. Yikes.
And it caught hold?
Well, I got lucky. During that time, I was actually like puking in the shower in the mornings. Like I had really come to where my drinking was bad, and I was afraid I was going to lose custody of my daughters, and I was scared.
You've become your mother.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm not puking outside, but I'm puking in the shower, which is gross and horrible, and no one in the world should do that.
Right.
Especially being as young as I was, and I wasn't, well, whatever. But make a long story longer, yeah, I got it the first time. I I bought everything they were selling.
So in that 3-month period where you're just interviewing and listening, are you still drinking during
Yes,
it?
I'm
All right.
still drinking. And that's when I really paid attention and said, oh, snap,
And
I have a problem.
and then after that 3 months where you said, all right, this is what I need, and you stopped.
Yeah. I was like, whatever these cult members want me to do. No, I'm kidding.
All
You know,
right.
I felt a little awkward and I tried to write them a check, but they didn't want my money. I mean, they were incredible people, my home group. And I just gave in. I eased in. I just sat back and said, I just said, whatever you want to tell me, I'll listen.
You know, my guest tomorrow that's airing, Brad, you know, when he first went to an AA meeting, first off, he's listening to these guys, he said, that had 15, 25, 30 years sober. And he's like, there's no way they drank like me. They must have just been wine drinkers. Ain't nobody drinking like me has 25 years sober. So he just couldn't buy into it. And then the whole God thing, you know, like his sponsor had him over to his house and said, get on your knees in my living room and pray. And he's like, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I'll do it my way. So, you know, he goes, it took me a while until I couldn't do it anymore and I surrendered. And I'm like,
yeah.
all right, you guys tell me what the hell to do. I thought I could do it on my own.
My way wasn't working. I was miserable. So I would have listened to anyone. I mean, you know, I was ready. I was just ready.
And, you know, I had to get completely broken to my knees, facing life in prison, before I said, I'm willing to do anything and everything to take my life in a new direction. Like, I can't go back to being the animal on the streets that I was. I'm willing. And it's my surrender moment. Like,
right.
Like all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, I'm facing life in prison. What the hell has happened here?
Right,
Like,
I can't imagine.
I don't know if I'll ever get out of this. You know, I had life in prison hanging over me for 3 years before they offered me a plea deal. But for those 3 years, I'm like, what the F have I done here? And, you know, so it's just like, it's time to surrender. And we fight that, we fight it, and life just continues to get more unbearable. And then you finally just have to say, all right, I surrender.
Yeah.
So let's, so you're a single mom with 2 daughters, and you're like in your later 30s, and you decide, you know what? I've got a brilliant idea. I'm going to become a jail guard, which is also known as a corrections officer. So take us into that decision. Was it simply just like a financial move?
Well, guilty as charged. You know, I was working as a dispatcher in a tiny town, and I loved it. It was my favorite job ever in my life. But, you know, I'm working around all these guys who are lovely, but making really good money and never went to college, you know, but they're making good money. But of course they're wearing a gun. And I was like, you know, I could do that. But of course I was too old. You know, the cutoff date was 35. I think now it's like 40, but it was 35 to be a police officer per se in the state of New Jersey. So that's why I went through the county, because there was no age limit for corrections. If you can get through the police academy, they'll take you. You know, you just got to complete it. So I wasn't that old. So I was like, all right, let me try. And I got in, and I want to say that I did it purely originally for financial reasons. I'm not proud of that, but I was a single mommy. The benefits were incredible. And the paycheck initially wasn't great, but I knew that there was the potential there, obviously, to make big bucks. Right. So I was like, okay.
And it never occurred to you that you're going into this male-dominated, you know, extreme environment, that maybe your childhood issues with 2 alcoholic parents and nothing but trauma, you're now putting yourself into a trauma situation as a career.
I was scared. I got to keep it real with you. I was scared, and I shook the first 3 months. But, you know, again, AA taught me that if you act as if, you'll be okay. So I literally acted as if I was a badass. And I had a face I made and everything. And I just looked people in the eye and did my job. And I actually didn't go to the police academy till like 6 months later. And I was like, I'm going to die. Like, Like I'm going to die here. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm faking forever. So finally I got the training. So when I came out, I felt a lot better. But initially I wasn't going to stay that long. I was like, oh, I'll stay till we have to go to the police academy. Then I'll quit.
So they start you before you even go to the academy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, you're shadowed, but I
Right.
mean, you're still in with, you're there with the danger, but so, then, then I was like, I'll never pass the academy. I'll just go because they're paying me to go. They paid me to go to the academy, which was amazing. So I go and then I'm like, I'm going to fail. Okay, well, I'll just stay till the day they fire me.
They boot me out.
Yeah. And so I needed the paycheck. My kids, their shoes kept, getting smaller. I was like, I had to keep buying. Life was happening. The mortgage, everything was happening. I had to keep moving. And then I graduated and it was like, oh, snap. So
I'm in.
every
Go
step,
figure.
it was just, and I was like, okay, just get through this year. Okay, just get through next year. And then every time I wanted to quit, I told you, because I, like you, the guy you had on before, Derek, I used to fantasize about falling, hanging myself, in the pod. I mean, just anything to get out of the situation.
All right. Take us up to what was creating that mental state in you. Was it the inmates? Was it the coworkers? Was it?
I started on night shift. They start you on night shift, which is really hard. I mean, night shift is horrible. You're not yourself. You don't sleep. You're a mess. And then, of course, I'm the rookie. So that's a whole other thing. Now, I don't come from this kind of environment, right? My parents were white collar, so I don't even understand what being a rookie is. Well, I was a rookie, and I did everything they said, and they did nothing or not much. And that's okay. I was the rookie.
Right.
But it was hard. I worked really hard where I'd work with these dinosaurs, making 3 times what I was making or 5 times, and they wouldn't do anything. But, I had to get through 8 hours with them.
And I have to, make a point here. You have a sweatshirt on today, but underneath you are well endowed. So how is that as a female well endowed going into this male thing, working the night shift? Are you getting hit on? Are you getting touched? Or what type of inappropriate behavior is going on?
I want to say that from the get-go, I think people really respected me primarily because of my height, but I'm not sure. Obviously, we had a great uniform. I had T-shirts. Everything was covered. Thank God. I was in, I looked good. I was younger. I was happening. I had a figure. But again, nobody touched me, thank God. But, again, the inmates would make comments sometimes. But like I said, I want to stress that the inmates were never the problem, at least for me.
That's what Derek said, too.
Yeah,
He's like, the best part of it was the inmates.
Short of, caring for them, I mean, they were like my foster children. I never had a problem with any of my inmates, even.
And didn't you even say you saw a lot of them in the AA meetings out on the street?
Absolutely. I still do. I see a lot of them. Some of them are very successful, clean for a while. I'm very proud of them. I still see them in restaurants everywhere because I still live in the area.
All right. So what's going on that's creating this thought in you that you want to harm yourself to get out of work?
Well, there's no sharing. I'm doing all the work, which just makes you angry as hell. You're exhausted. You can't do anything wrong because everybody's dying for you to do something wrong because you're the rookie.
Right.
You're on camera. So you scratch your butt or whatever, and then everybody knows the next morning. I mean, again, that's petty. But you're working with people inside a control center. I wasn't direct supervision, so I was in a control center. And people are watching like risque movies or porn or watching other stuff. And I'm like, could you lower that?
Just so people know, I mean, this is how my jail was. You had a floor split in half. So say you're on the 5th floor, you have 5 left, 5 right, and right dead center is a control bubble.
Right. It's small.
And there's 3 seats in there. That's what yours was.
Yes.
So here you're working night shift with was there one other officer or was there 2 in there?
It depended on the post, but it was usually one other officer. So, again, you have to, my job was basically to be a chameleon with these people. I had to get along with them. So these are people coming from all walks of life and walks of life that I've never heard of, which is fine. I'm educated. I'm an ex-New Yorker. I can handle it. But I saw some stuff that was just like, wow, what are you doing?
So
can you not do that?
So they're watching porn in the bubble
Right. And I'm like,
with a female
right,
alone with
with a
just a
female
female.
there. And of course, I'm reading my book because I'm sort of a nerd. And I'm like, can you
Would
just
any
lower
of
that?
as they're watching porn, or any of them touching themselves?
No, no. Well, they would rub, I mean, they would. Different people would do different stuff. They would feel themselves and do whatever, and I would walk away and go do my job. I mean, it was different times. I mean, talking to you about it now sounds horrible, and I would never not want my kids to go through this. But yeah, they would touch themselves or, get excited, whatever was happening from the pornography. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Right. But again,
and you don't dare go to your lieutenant.
I can't say
write
anything.
Him up.
Right. I need a job. Because
then you're the piranha.
I need a job. And actually, we were supposed to write inmates up when they would touch themselves and masturbate and stuff, which they often did with a female on post. Right. But again, I always just ascribe to the theory that when in Rome, do as Romans do. A lot of people wrote them up. I didn't write them up because I felt like I was in their territory. Like, they were young men. Like, what are they going to do? They're not reading. They're bored out of their mind. I don't know. I mean, I'm on their territory, so I just stay out of the way.
And now you took this job sober.
And stay out of the way.
Are you seeing addiction issues in your coworkers? Drugs,
everywhere,
alcohol?
Everywhere. And I love them. Like, I love these guys, so it's hard to talk about. But yeah, there was a lot of addiction going on. And, eventually the whole jail found out that I was sober. And it was sort of like, okay, people sort of handled it. Inevitably, they ended up respecting me for it because they were just like, how can you work here and not drink? And my answer was, pints of Haagen-Dazs. I just did what I had to do to get through it. I went to a lot of meetings. I meditated. I would go to cop AA meetings. I did anything I could do, talk to people and just try to get through the whole thing. I mean, I exercised. I used to run a lot just to clear my head,
Now, so there's guys actually doing drugs. You know
Yeah.
that they're doing drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know that they're drinking heavily.
Yeah.
They're steroids.
Yeah, steroids, blues, whatever they're doing. I mean, I'm not actually watching them, but, they're showing up with me, either working with me or, they're angry, they're yelling, they're acting not like themselves because they're amped up on whatever.
And weren't you even told on many occasions to go pick a fellow officer up at a strip bar who's drunk and needs to get home to sober up for work?
Yeah, there was a lot of dysfunctional things. And again, me being the rookie, once I got off night shift, a lot of stuff changed. And part of me thinks it didn't change. I just think I changed because I had more sleep.
Who would ask you to go pick up this guy from a strip point?
My superiors.
One of your superiors.
My superiors. Yeah, I didn't do anything unless my superior. I mean, I would do stuff for coworkers.
And this is on the night shift.
Yeah.
While you're on duty, hey, go pick up Billy Joe.
Go pick up whoever, they're misbehaving. And, okay,
And was there any improper behavior between any of the officers and female or male prisoners?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
A lot of stuff went on in the stairwell. But again, I want to stress that this was a lot of OG behavior. As I advanced in my career and as, the years went by, they started hiring more educated kids. The people changed. But the people that I started with were pretty archaic, old-fashioned, die-hard, tough dinosaur people who weren't open to anything. Like, if I spoke Spanish to my inmates, they would yell at me. Whereas, when I left and spoke Spanish, all the guys I worked with spoke Spanish. Like, everybody was, just smarter, sharper, and kinder, gentler, I don't know, more accepting. Whereas when I started, it was all these people. A lot of these people I'm talking about have died or retired. They're long gone.
Right.
But
you had this mentality. You had this crew.
I just shut up and prayed.
Older guys.
I just did what I could do to get through.
Maybe coming out of the Vietnam era.
Yeah, we had a few of those. Absolutely. We had a room where they could go and get angry and yell. And, we had a few of those.
Wow.
And all props to them. God bless them. They were working in a very stressful, place, and they were still not recovered from the stress they had gone through in the war. It was, I worked with a lot of military people. It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. I kind of became just like Officer Mother Teresa. If an inmate cried, they were sent to me. I became like a social worker. I just started taking care of people because I realized that this disgusting building was completely bereft of love and happiness. And it just became my mission to just kind of be kind to people.
I went to prison at Northern State Prison in Newark, and there's guards that were racist there, and I had guys that went down South Jersey, Bayshore, Southern State, and they'd be like, these guys are straight up Aryan Nation. Like they got the lightning bolt tattoo on them. I'm like, really?
Right.
Oh, they're like, oh, hell yeah. Did you have anybody, coworkers like that in there?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, we had Proud Boys. We had a bunch of people. I'm sure they were members of the KKK, but I can't verify that, but they behaved as if. And I know that, for a while I dated a sergeant at the jail who was African American, and people didn't like that.
How did that go over?
My coworkers were like, what? So, it just, they got over it. The thing about these jobs that you have in the public sector like that is you stay so long at a job that you actually work on the problems. And then you may not talk to an officer for 5 years because he hates you, but then the 6th year you make up, or he sees a side of you that he likes, or his kid does something that your kid did, or his kid goes to rehab and he talks to you, and now I'm okay. You get to work out all the problems. It's like a family. It's a dysfunctional family, but it's a family. At the end of the day, we still all were there to help each other. Whether we did or not, we were there in that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the goal.
Again, like it's also it's a sign of the times. You're a female in this male industry, and you want to keep your job, and it's just like females being stuck in a marriage where the husband's the breadwinner, and it's a miserable marriage. He's a narcissist, but they don't have control of the finances to break free.
Right.
And you needed financial help for your daughters, raising them. And you almost feel stuck. And you put up with a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, I think the tide has turned.
Yes.
Where what you're describing, you could instantly go to someone and be like,
Right.
Are you nuts? Like,
Right.
there's a guy in a stairwell getting oral sex from a female
Exactly.
prisoner. All right,
Exactly.
I'm sitting in a bubble at night with another guard who's watching porn and masturbating in front of me.
Right.
Like, this is not.
Or just
this is not okay.
Constantly asking me what my bra size is, and just like, can we talk about something else?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the bra size guy was the same guy that would play gospel music on a Sunday morning, and I'd be like, really? In the bubble. Don't get me wrong. I'd be like, okay, I'll go with this.
Along with
but
this.
I'm like, wow, this is, you could write a novel. But but again, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, Clark, I was making great money, man.
Right.
I was like J-Lo. I'm making such great money that, my daughters, their lives are getting better because of it. We're traveling. We're going to Disney every year. It was really, we were doing well. I paid for half of college. I did things that a lot of single mommies I knew were incapable of doing. And I guess maybe that's what kept me there, and kept me in this place and kept me quiet. Kept me quiet because I never did get promoted. And I told you that I should have been promoted, but I didn't want to mess with people, F with people, jump over people. And then if I got promoted, nobody would have listened to me because I was a female, or don't listen to her. She's banana head, or, whatever they thought of me. Right. And gaslighting, you say something and
you
like,
were actually looked down for having a college degree, weren't you?
Absolutely. And I had a lieutenant for a decade that would go on and on. Oh, let's talk to the college graduate. And I'd be like, oh my God.
Just jabs constantly every day.
And again, this is nothing. But again, at the same time, all day long, every day, you're like, you know what? I can't. Just stop.
Right.
But it also made me stronger and tougher. And I learned how to deal with people like that.
Right. Right. So how long do you last there?
I was there 14 years.
Okay.
And then I left right before COVID. Thank God I was able to retire before COVID.
Just before COVID is when you got out.
Yeah.
And, you had worked other county jobs where you now had enough
Yes, and
time
I
combined
combined them all, exactly,
to
yeah,
get
yeah,
a
yep.
retirement
I'd worked from the
package.
school system, I'd worked, my dispatcher, everything just combined, so I was
All
out, yeah.
came together, and
Yes.
you're like, all right,
I'm free, I'm free.
it's enough.
I'm free.
I've had enough. And then take me into and throughout this time, you're still going to AA,
Absolutely.
and are you still going to AA now?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah.
So it's a part of your life.
Yeah, it's
And,
and everybody know. I mean, I pretty much everybody knows in my life.
and you had a Catholic father and an atheist mother. Did you become an atheist, or did you adopt faith and spirituality?
I have a lot of atheist friends, but I went to Catholic school, and again, I bought what they were selling me. So I always had a childlike faith, thank God. I was very angry at God when my dad died. I didn't pray for like a year, but I've always had a good faith. So that was not a hard leap for me. You know what I mean? That I was like, oh, higher power, awesome. I prefer to call him God, but higher power, whatever, I'll
Right.
take it. It's all good. Buddha, whatever you want to say,
Right.
I'm open and I love it. And I'm at the point in my life now in retirement where like I surrender a lot of my decisions, my life, everything to the higher power or the universe or whatever you want to call it. I don't drive the truck anymore. I don't use the steering wheel. I do, but I do rely heavily on just what's going to happen today is what's supposed to happen today. What I'm saying to you right now is what I'm supposed to say today.
Right.
It's a lot easier to live that way. It's hard to get there, but if you can get there, it's liberating.
So take me into a day in the life now of your life. Wake up early, wake up late.
Wake up
What
early.
do you do when you wake up?
Wake up
do you have a
early.
routine?
Yeah.
So all right, so
wake up early. Meditate a lot. Half an hour,
I hear
45
that over
minutes.
and over and over and over from all my guests.
It's saved.
Meditate.
Yeah, meditation for me is just, it made me a better guard. If I didn't meditate, I would scream at people. It just centers me and calms me down, and I pray. Sometimes while I'm meditating, sometimes I do it separately. Now I work in a nursery school, part-time. I work from 9 to 2, and I love it. It's great. This way I get my grandmother fill without terrorizing my older one. I want a grandchild very badly, but it's not all about me. It's about her. It's her life. So when I'm supposed to be a grandmother is when I'll be a grandmother. So instead of terrorizing her, I just started getting my own love from little people. And it's actually a lot like my jail guard
remarried?
job. Yes, I remarried. I'm sorry I said that. Yeah, before I retired, I remarried.
Remarried?
Yeah.
All right. So wake up early, meditate, pray, exercise.
I walk a lot.
Walk a lot?
But
Yeah,
I walk a lot. I'm not really an exercise chick, but I do walk. And again, it clears my head. I like walking in like the park and nature around my development, that kind of thing. I do walk.
And you're sober. How about your husband? Is he a drinker?
No, he is sober.
He's sober also.
He's sober. He just celebrated his 15th anniversary. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you got a sober mate.
Yeah.
So that should lead to a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It's it's great. It's good.
Your kids are in your life.
Yep.
So family, prayer, meditation, exercise. What else keeps you on a free path?
Try
Just
to eat right.
Eating it. Yeah.
I just try to be kind to people, and just everything I do, even when I talk to a customer service rep or if I go to a store, I just try to be kind. And like Buddhism, don't make anything worse. Don't make anybody else worse. Don't leave something worse than it was, than you found it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mind my
when
business.
when you're dealing with your trauma, you're dealing with addiction, it's hard to be Mrs. Compassionate or Mr. Compassionate. I get all the time like comments, on social media posts. Oh, you're so wonderful and kind to people. And that's now like, but
Right.
But when you're, like I wasn't a douchebag, let's say, to people, but I wasn't Mr. Compassionate because I hate myself.
Yeah, I was mean.
I
Yeah.
hated myself. How can I love you when I hate myself?
And I always tell my children and my friends and the people I sponsor, if somebody's being nasty to you, it's their problem. It's their thing. Pray for them.
Right.
Just pray for them.
Right.
There were officers that were so nasty to me, and I prayed for them for years and killed them with kindness. And I don't know if God did it or I just changed. I don't know what happened, but they became okay.
Huh.
It was okay. So I don't know if I changed
Changed.
or if higher power changed me. And it doesn't even matter. It just got better. It changed.
So you don't know if the change was in you
Right.
to deal with them easier, or they actually changed their
Right.
behavior.
Or maybe I matured, or maybe, just this praying and meditating for them or sending them positive light, whatever. I don't know if it helped me, it helped them. All I know is it changed the situation and made it better. And it's like, wow. Okay, got to learn from
And this
that.
is the sober version of
Yes,
you. Like I said, when you
yes.
were using, was it hard to be, that compassionate person
I
to
was
other
nasty,
people?
arrogant, and look, get out of my way, because I would have knocked you down. In New York, I used to walk behind people and be like, move it or lose it. Like, I was horrible. And I would just bum
Coming
rush
through.
you. Yeah, like,
Out of my way.
horrible. Like I'm somebody.
Right.
Like I'm somebody. Like, who am I?
Right.
Come on. Restaurants, I wouldn't even go to the hostess. I'd just sit right down. I don't need you. I sit where I want. I'm the customer. How disgusting.
Right.
I'm not like that today.
Right. I just made a post the other day, like, are people capable of change? And
Absolutely.
the answer is yes.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
when you address addiction and trauma and you look at yourself, self-analysis, and you're like, ugh, gosh, who did I become?
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
That's what I say too.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm average Joe, just took a chance, and it's so much easier without the substance.
Right.
Initially, it's hard, but once you get over that hump, or a year, once you start changing, it's like, wow.
Can you remember back to the mornings of waking up when you were like at your worst at drinking, like just hated life, just hated waking up,
Hated myself, hated life, wanted to kill people,
wanted to kill yourself,
wanted to kill myself.
and then waking up now?
Oh, first of all, I'm thrilled I wake up now.
Right.
Because I'm getting to be that age
Gratitude.
where people don't always,
Grateful. Right.
Gratitude all the time. Gratitude is the attitude.
Right.
Gratitude for everything. This isn't shishi water, but it's water. I'll take it.
Right.
Grateful. Yeah, I wake up now and it's just another day.
Peaceful and grateful.
Just another day to live. I get to talk to my kids every day, pretty much. I see them often. I have a lot of friends whose adult children don't bother with them. Right. My kids dig me, man. And thank God. And my coworkers, half my age, younger, like me. Like, people like me today. I'm the best version of myself than I've ever been. And that makes me happy because I'm authentic. I'm not the fake chick I was with all the makeup, 40 years ago. I was cute, but I was fake.
Right.
I wasn't living my truth. And like, free like me, right. Like the name of your podcast. I am free, man. Right. Free.
Me too. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciated it. All right, everybody.
Yikes.
We are capable of change. Surrender. That's what we got to do. We got to surrender. We got to free ourselves. I hope you took something away from this episode, and I hope you get free. And God bless Mike. Peace. We'll see you next week.